Hey, wokey wokes, what's it like being exploited for marketing? Oh, you are so precious and adorable, the woke, righteous, moral police. You know, the ones who want to defund everything, but then they go and emulate exactly what they want defunded. Hello, everyone. I am Mecha Random 42, the one, the only, the original, your favorite YouTube consumer advocate Harpy, talking about the most important story of the day. Obviously, it is Mr. Potato Head, or there. No, that is offensive. That is offensive to the Mr., Mrs., Mrs., and anything in betweens out there. The Potato Head saga, the big drama, the big kerfuffle, the big to-do around the new Potato Head, rebranding, repackaging, all to allegedly appear to cave and bow to the wokey wokes in a way that, well, I guess it's kind of working, to be perfectly honest, because I certainly haven't thought about Mr. Potato Head since, I was a kid, probably way back in the day. More on that in a second here. What is so funny and hilarious that with all of this marketing that they're doing, and that's all this really is. This is just a way to get people to talk about a product now that they've just rebranded, repacked, and companies do this every few years, whether you notice it or not. A lot of the times these companies will just rebrand to get a fresh new, because people will just forget about it, it'll drop off, it'll just stop being as important and as interesting. And they want to do something to get you to talk about it again. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they're using the woke outrage mobs as the perfect little pawns to do such a thing. Because let's face it, who's the most gullible people on the planet right about now? It's the woke mobs. It's the people who are offended by everything. The people who can't seem to understand why that is. Why? What's so offensive? They don't know. They're just sitting there from their little iPhones that people make in Chinese sweatshops somewhere, and they're sitting there from their air-conditioned houses with their fully stocked refrigerators and DoorDash and Uber Eats right at their disposal, and they have to be offended because life is so hard, isn't it? Life is so hard. It's so hard for the poor oppressed people who need a Mr. Potato Head of their very own, not remembering, not being old enough to remember. In the 1980s, where you could just make whatever potato head you crapping well pleased.
It's Mr. Potato Head and his bucket of parts.
We had any option. That was the point. You could put a mustache on the woman if you wanted to. You could put any combination. You would buy them all, wouldn't you? You'd buy one of each one and then mix and match. Or, like when I was a kid, you would just buy the Mr. Potato Head and a bucket of farts.
It's Mr. Potato Head and his bucket of parts.
That would solve the entire problem. You could put anything you want. You get the Mr., you get the Mrs., you get the baby, you get everything. Just put a big bucket together and we will buy it, for crying out loud. But no, you had to go and change the you didn't even change the label. Well, we're going to get into the article here in a second. Also, when I was a kid, anybody else hear bucket of farts back in? That's what I did. It was funny. I'm sorry. I had to break it up with a little bit of levity and humor because we're talking about Mr. Crapping and Mrs. Crapping Potato Head and Baby Potato Spud Head here. You can make them anything you want. You already could. It was never an issue. And let's face it, if people are that upset about what's on the packaging, this isn't going to change it. Because if you read the small print and you read all the different languages that they use in the subtext, well, other languages tend to be gendered when referring to male and female, and it's okay. We figured this out long before the wokey wokes were born, and I know it's going to be hard for them. To know that labeling something based on a gender or a person, mother, father, maternal, paternal, stuff like that, isn't anti-them, and it doesn't make them not exist. It doesn't mean we're excluding them. It just means that's how the language was set up a long time ago. Stop being offended by it. We don't care. Now, this is coming from, who is this? Hypebeast. According to reports, Hasbro has now rebranded Mr. Potato Head as gender neutral. Sort of, not really though, not 100%. Taking to Twitter, the toy purveyor tweeted a photo showing new boxes set to roll out later this year, accompanied by a playful yet poignant message. Hold that thought, your main spud, Mr. Potato Head, isn't going anywhere. While it was announced today that Mr. Potato Head, a brand name and logo, are dropping the Mr., I am... bad pun. That's a bad pun. That's a bad pun. I am proud to confirm that Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head aren't going anywhere and will remain Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. The root vegetable inspired figure made popular in the Toy Story franchise. Well, that's not true. That's not true. We had Mr. Potato Head in the 80s, before Toy Story. Why are you lying? See, this is what's a problem with all of these younger than me, people younger than me, article writers, the journalists, the people today who think that nothing happened before they were born. Mr. Potato Head has a long history of being a toy back to the days when you would just buy the clip-on little pieces that you would stick in a real potato.
Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, take any fruit or vegetable.
Because what did moms have in the kitchen, back when moms had kitchens and stayed home to raise their fucking brats? You would have a sack of potatoes that she would use and make her own fresh mashed potatoes instead of out of a box. She would actually cook home-cooked, homemade shit, and she would give her kid a fucking potato to play with, because who the hell's buying their kids fucking iPads back in the 1950s? Nobody. So you'd stick a little lip and an eye and a mustache, and then you'd have a potato head. You could have a potato Picasso. You could have a Mrs. Potato Head. Whatever you chose. It did not be popular in the Toy Story. No, it was already a popular toy. That's why they used it. They wanted a few... That's like saying Barbie was made popular from Toy Story. Oh my God. Do your research, grow up.
Go home to your mother. Doesn't she ever watch you?
How do I know more about Mr. Potato Head, and I haven't thought about one since the 1980s when it was a bucket of farts?
It's Mr. Potato Head and his bucket of parts.
Mr. Potato Head will now allow kids more accurately expressed figures that represent their own family model. We already had that. It was in the bucket of parts. Hasbro is helping kids to simply see toys as toys, which we already did. We didn't care. You know what we said when we saw Miss Pac-Man? Hey, it's the girl one now. Who cares? That's the thing. You're just adding more things to sell us, more variations, and that's what you should do. You shouldn't have changed the existing ones. You should have made a third one to sell a new existing one, and then market even more to these people, because they're not very smart sometimes. Not the LGBTQ people, because those people are not part of the hate mob usually, even though the hate mob gets labeled as the entire community, as the case with Gina Carano. Chief Communications Officer of the LGBT advocacy group praised the decision's rebranding. Hasbro is helping kids simply see. Yeah, but that's the thing. We already did. And if you look at their tweet here. Hold your tots. Your main spuds aren't going anywhere. Well, just read. Let's just read it, okay? You still have the male variant on the box. So you still can't choose anything other than the male variant here. It looks like to me, unless the back of the box, if you flip it around, is the woman version. I don't think so. I think they're still selling a Mr. and a Mrs. And it says so right there on the box. Mr. Potato Head, M. Patate, Senior Cara, De Papa, De Papa. So pretty much different variations of the father, the paternal, the patriarchy. Oh, it's the patriarchy. Just label it patriarchy potato, and then you'd really appease them. And then feminist SJW potato instead of Mrs. Because you still have the feminine version. You still have the female version. So yes, you get 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you only get the one potato. You still only get the Lady Whammon version of the Potato Head. They're just not married. Did they get a divorce? And it still says Mrs. Potato Head. And I mean, it just says it a million times over, but I can't pronounce or read that second one here. You guys will know. I can't even tell you what language that is. They're still the same, though. All they did was drop the Mr. and Mr. from the title of the box. The descriptors still say so. And congratulations, Wokey Wokes. You changed nothing. You got nothing. You didn't even get any sort of inclusive and diversity version of your... Because that would have been an interesting thing. You know what? I'm all about adding more, bringing more. Don't take away from something that's existing. Bring more seats to the table. Don't remove something. Don't replace. Why not add? That's what Barbie usually does. They add these gender-neutral dolls that you can have of any shape or color of the rainbow or whatever you want, whatever gender you want to make them, which is fine. I mean, if kids want to play with them, great. If they don't, they won't. You know, it'll be that gift that somebody bought them thinking, hey, I'm being inclusive, and then they'll just chuck it over their shoulder. But you really didn't accomplish anything. You got a lot of people to talk about Mr. Potato Head, including me, and The wokey wokes are exposed once more as being these exploitable marketing tools, which is what I keep saying all along. It's all this it's just marketing. It's marketing so they know who to advertise to, so it's easier without even changing the product. This just proves my point entirely. They didn't even change the product. Not one bit. They didn't take away or remove or change or add. They just decided to tell you it was inclusive, and they believed it, and the wokey wokes believed it.
Wokey mom.
Gender neutral.
This proves my point 1000%, that it is all about marketing. Representation is not about seeing you on screen. It is about stereotyping you into a label, category, group, so that everybody knows what political affiliation you belong to, what side of the aisle you're on, who you're sleeping with, who you're interested in sleeping with, what movies you like. It's all about marketing. I am MechaRandom42, and I will see you guys on the next video, live stream, or wherever. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye!
It's Mr. Potato Head and his bucket of parts.